A few words. Thank you. You have introduced me already very nicely. Indeed, I'm working now for more than 30 years. You see it on my gray hair as well. In projects, programs, and also sometimes portfolios. Once as a consultant, once as a line manager or a project manager in an organization. At the moment, I'm leading the train acquisition programs within the Swiss Railways. A very interesting, challenging topic. I'm level A certified already for I think the fourth time recertified already. So I've in fact certificate number 7 in IPMA. So already for quite a while with IPMA. At the moment, I'm really happy to be vice president. Here in IPMA, I'm responsible for marketing, events, and awards within the board here in IPMA. I happen to be the project manager of the development of IPMA, the competence standard ICB4. You may know that IPMA has now already for 5-6 years now an updated version of the competence baseline. I will talk you through today on this one. So it's this booklet. You have it also in the Philippines in an English version. I will talk you through this one. What is competencies? What are important elements to successful deliver? And if I have also time, I will talk about the project itself. So this is about my agenda. I have a bit more than an hour and 20 minutes. First of all, the big question: what is competence? Everybody is talking about competence and has a different view on that. Then the core is what competences are important for successfully deliver projects. That's the core of my presentation today. But then also the question, how can we develop competences? How can we measure progress? And how can competences be assessed? How is IPMA doing that in this context? Hopefully we have enough time then also to talk a bit about the project itself, how we developed that. It was a 6 years program, a worldwide program, a few insights in that. And finally, if we have still time, we can talk about IPMA. It's prepared. Otherwise, you get the materials also for you to read through. So first of all, the big question: what is competence? What is competence? It's so easy to say. Many of you are students learning at the university. Are you learning competences? Just give me a bit of insights. I don't want to speak on my own totally alone. What are elements for you which are important in terms of competences? Please write it in the blog, in the chat, or also if you can raise a microphone. What is competences for you? What are elements of it? Ability. Ability, yes, ability is a good one. From Mark, ability. What else? Something that's fit for the job. Very important, yes, it has to fit to the job. So you might be very competent, but if it doesn't fit to the job, it is not purposeful. Successfully deliver certain tasks, capability. Yeah, also having sufficient knowledge. Knowledge is also certainly an important part of competences. Proficiency, that's already quite a high level of competences. Particular skills that we are good at. Okay, somebody has read the ICB, obviously. Knowledge, skills, abilities, experience. Design abilities, efficient. Good aspects. So there are many definitions out there. There are also many various definitions. We have studied that in the project. Well, can we rely on an international definition? But that is not true. There is not one single definition out there which is appreciated throughout the whole community. But one thing is very important, and this is something which might disappoint some of you, the ones studying at the university. Competences is not equal to knowledge. Competence is more than just knowledge. And of course, ability, at the end, it needs also experiences. Many students at universities and university programs on MBAs and DBAs have taken this trend on board. They do not just teach knowledge anymore. They want to have this knowledge, at least in an applied environment. They are looking for environment where they can really, when the students can really learn and experience. They go out to organizations to do it, to learn it. So this is very important. It's not just knowledge. How is IPMA defining competencies? We are, as you may know, addicted to knowledge. We believe knowledge, competencies as such is not enough. So how do we define competencies? We say individual competencies. There is also a competence in teams or organization. Individual competence is the application of knowledge, skills, and abilities in order to achieve the desired result. So the definition with us contains four elements. It's, of course, knowledge. You have to know it. You have to have the skills to use it. You have to have the abilities to adapt and further develop it. And it has to have the target to achieve the desired result. So competencies which do not fit to the required result, do not bring you closer to the desired result, are useless. Let me give you an example. Have you ever seen such a picture? I guess yes. Yes. A simple Gantt chart. Well, it's not that simple, but it's a nice Gantt chart. So, of course, when it comes to planning here, so the competencies of planning, you have to be able to draw a Gantt chart. That's knowledge, how to make it. You get the tasks, you put it on the time schedule, you put it in the system, you connect it, you plan it. So that is knowledge. But you have to also have the skills to adapt it, to live with it, to work with it, to maybe condense it, to make it more detailed. So this is skills, and the ability at the end comes when you make the right decision based on something like this. When you know what it means, what you have in front of you, what it means in terms of project success to deliver successfully. So that's an example, just one example of knowledge is not just competence. Knowledge is a basic element. You have to know it, but you have also to work with it, and you have to further develop and anticipate, do something with it. Most beautiful Microsoft project plan is useless if you don't do anything with it to achieve the desired results. So that brings me to the next question of my presentation in here. What competences are important to successfully deliver projects, also programs and portfolios? We at IPMA, in our competence standards, we have defined 3 areas. Very, very well-known practice stuff. This is the core of project management: planning, organizing, delivering. This is practice. But we have a second competence area, that's people. Project is never done without people. You have to organize it, you have to do it, you have to lead it, you have to organize it, you have to team with others. So that's the second competence area. And the third one is perspective. A third area, you never do a project in isolation, or hardly. Maybe when you have to have a Mars landing, you do it in isolation. But usually you do a project always in a specific content, in an organization or in multiple organizations, in an environment. which you have to take under consideration, and yet you can also influence to a certain extent. That's the perspective. Of course, we have used terms which start with a P, PPP, also in analogy to project, program, and portfolios. That's why we call it practice, people, perspective. You could call it also differently. Let me start with this perspective competencies. What is important? In our ICB, we describe the first element, the strategy. You have to align your project with the overall strategy, mission, vision of the organization. You have to find opportunities, possibilities to influence that. When you come up with a higher program or portfolio level, you influence or even design or help designing the strategy. You have to determine critical success factors, how you measure the success of the whole project undertaking. You have to define key performance indicators, how you get there. The second competence element or competence in this perspective area is governance structures and processes. As I mentioned before, you are never doing it alone. You have structures or company structures, systems, which you have to take under consideration, governance elements, decision boards, and processes, of course. You have to take them all on board to align your project with the organization, to make it successful. If you have the idea to go against all the processes and structures within an organization, in many cases, you will not be successful. A third perspective competence is compliance standards and regulations. More and more, we have to cope with external stuff. We build a bridge and we have to follow norms. Pharmaceutical is a very nice example of project where you have a lot of regulations. Unfortunately, in my training projects, we also have very many regulations and unfortunately changing regulations. We have to take them all on board to make a project finally successful. Power and interest. I don't know the Philippine culture so much, but I know the European culture is already quite nice. And every project is also dependent on power and interests. And this is not the power of the CEO alone. There are other powering interested parties which also have a significant power and interest into the project. You have to analyze that. You have to take that into consideration. You have to follow these people. You may also have heard about this gray hair guys, which influences, although they are not line managers, but they are very influential in the organization. You have to find these guys to be successful in the project. Either you fulfill their interests or you keep them informed, whatever is adequate. And the fifth competence element in this perspective area is culture. Culture and values, which means you have to take into consideration not only the country culture or the company culture, but also subcultures. There might be some cultures, for example, a financial department has a complete different culture than the marketing department in many organizations. So you have also to take these different ways of approaching values into consideration when you go into a project. These are the 5 elements, competencies described in our standard also. It's about this contextual stuff around your project, which have to be taken into consideration to be successful. Let me go to the next area of the people competencies. As I mentioned in the intro, we are always working with people. People are building projects, people are building bridges, people are organizing stuff. We are also delivering projects for people at the end. And so IPMA describes 10 people competencies, which gives you also an impression that it is also very important. And it starts with the first one about yourself. First few competence elements, it's about you as a person working in projects. The first one is a self-reflection and self-management. It is of very importance how you behave and how you manage your work when you manage a project. And you have to be very self-reflective. You have to learn a lot. This is also very important in terms of competencies. You have to learn a lot. You have to like to learn. And this is a very important part that you can adapt to changes, to different settings, to different things. You know, a project is per definition something new, has some novelty in it. And if you cannot cope with that, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. You are leading a project. A second people competence is then about your personal integrity and reliability. In many cultures, especially also in Europe, which I know quite well, the reliability is one of the core things to build trust. You have to generate clear communication channels. You have to also to be transparent. You have to communicate in a concise way. You have to tell the people the truth. And if you cannot tell them something because it's not yet decided, for example, then tell them you can't. Don't lie. Don't try to come around to this issues. Tell them I can't. At the moment I can't. I know it, but I can't. You have to build also social networks. When you are completely alone, you don't have others helping you in this context. It's going to be very, very difficult. Relationship and engagement. You have to build. Partners, peers you can ask for help. Also include them. Demonstrate empathy is, for example, also very important. Listen to people. Ask them for their opinion. You don't need to make always what they say, but you have to ask them. Leadership, fifth competence element in people area, a very important one. We had a long discussion whether leadership is a competence or is not everything around leadership. So this is also something you could easily discuss and endlessly, and there are some research out there, of course, doing that. We have decided to make it an own competence, also to emphasize the importance of leadership, showing the direction, motivate others, get them on board, make them interested in the topic. This is leadership. It's not just hitting on their necks because they don't do what you want. It's about showing the way forward, how to achieve the topics, the goals. Teamwork, of course. Teamwork, very important. You are not alone. You have others in your team. You split the work. You cannot build the bridge on your own or organize processes on your own. You need others to do that. You have to select and build the team, of course. Then you have to promote cooperation. You have to facilitate workshops and other things to develop the people. People also want to grow. People in your teams want to grow, not just you. You have to empower the teams. You have to make them capable of working and doing and delivering their tasks. Conflict and crisis. Very interesting, people's competence element. Conflict and crisis. Everybody hates conflicts and crisis, but of course you have to manage them properly. But they also generate opportunities, possibilities to get out of the crisis, get more, get better, and solve the issues. So you have to anticipate, you have to prevent conflicts if possible, but you have also to learn from that. Well, what was wrong in this conflict, in this crisis? Of course, you have to mediate in terms of conflicts if necessary, or take somebody on board who helps you mediate this kind of conflicts and crises. Also, an important people competence is resourcefulness, inventiveness, you could call it also. We have decided to name it resourcefulness. So you have to not just yourself, you have to find new ways. You also have to stimulate the team to get new ideas. You have to support them. Maybe you manage and organize a workshop to find new ways around, new solutions. You have also to be able to use analytical data to find out solutions, problems, ways forward, maybe ways to accelerate the work on others. The ninth of the people's, number 9 in people competencies is negotiation. Of course, every day you have to make negotiations, not just the big ones with some suppliers, but also negotiation with your team, negotiation with I don't know, every day you have to sort out negotiation. You have to analyze the interests, of course. You have to make a plan, bigger ones, small ones, you will not do that, but the bigger negotiations you have to plan, to structure. There are different methods also available to do that. You have to find others to help you. Bad guy, good guy, stories and this kind of things you have to do. And of course, you have to learn after each negotiation what went wrong, what do we have to do better next time. And the last but not least is the results orientation. A project manager usually is a kind of person which drives an organization towards the results. You have seen in the competence definition is the ability to achieve the desired results, a very important one. So you need to also yourself, but also the team to be much more result oriented, to get to the point, to get out, to deliver it, get acceptance of the deliverables you want to produce, create, of course, also an environment where people can deliver results. So these are the 10 competencies which we believe are important in the areas of people, which are very important for delivering success. It starts with you as a person, how you behave, how you learn, how you manage yourself. It goes then through the team, teamwork, leadership, but also then to the outer world, results orientation, deliver what has been promised. Beside of the perspective and people, we have also the practice elements, which is, of course, this is the traditional way or the classical way of managing or elements of project management, you could call it. But you will be surprised that it starts with a competence element, which is not that well known. We have seen during the development of the ICB that project manager usually start jumping into a task by planning. They start planning. That is what they are here for. But a successful project manager step back, maybe just a few hours, maybe a few weeks, and think about how to tackle the problem, how to plan, how to get into the topic. So that we call it the design stuff. You have to see what is important, to review the success criteria. You have to determine the complexity, because complexity drives then also the way you approach. You have also to find ways how you are going to deliver. For example, also in terms of methodology, is a waterfall approach the better one than a Scrum approach, for example? All these elements you have to think before you get into the whole thing. Also, people-wise, who do you need on board necessarily to be successful? So this is something we very often forget at the beginning. To make maybe an easy task is just a few hours. A big program takes longer. about this design phase or this design competence to think first before you start planning. Of course, then a second practice element is requirement objective. You have to define what is the outcome, what is the benefit, what is the goal, the hierarchy of the whole thing, the requirement. You have to prioritize, of course, all this classical requirement objectives task. You have to know what to deliver. What happens now? Where am I? Sorry for that. Scope, next one. Deliverables, structure project scope, structure the work packages, traditional one or in an agile way. Depends on what you have selected. Then you have to also manage the time. The deliverables, put the deliverables on time scale. Depending on the project approach or methods, it's differently, but you have to manage the time. Finally, somebody expects you to deliver something to a specific time, and you have to create sort of schedule, being a traditional waterfall schedule or being a Scrum approach where you structure the packages in detail. Next one is organization and information. You have to organize the whole documentation, the information of how to set up the teams with their roles, with their organization, how they get informed, how they get engaged in the team, how you document the whole thing, all this kind of stuff. Quality, also an important competence. Quality, not just of the deliverables, so of the boxes you produce, the products you produce, or the bridge, or whatever it is, but also the quality of the work you do in project management. You have to do it in the most efficient way. So the quality of project management. Finances, also an important one. Of course, you need financial measures. You need money. So you have to organize it. You have to control it. You have to allocate it to tasks, to whatever it is, and condense it then backwards again. For that, you get the control of the finances. Resources. You have to manage the people and other resources. This can be tools, machines, infrastructure, locations, whatever it is. Depending on your project, you have to organize all these resources and plan it, organize it, and manage it throughout the project. Procurement. In many projects, you have to procure something from outer parties. You have to plan it. You have to do it. You have to negotiate things in the procurement, of course, and you have to make sure that the flow of the materials, for example, on a construction site, are in line with the plans, so that the materials are there to that specific requirement. You take everything together into a plan, whatever plan it is. It can be a long-term waterfall plan. It can be just a sprint in an agile way. You have to plan it. You have to take everything together, and you have to control it. You have to measure it, the success and the progress of the whole thing constantly. 3 more. We have in total 13 different practice competence elements, risk and opportunities. Of course, in every project, something can go wrong, and surprisingly can also go good. We not just have risks, we also have opportunities. When we combine, for example, 2 tasks together, when we combine it with another project, for example, we can generate opportunities to be faster, cheaper, or higher quality. It's not just about what can go wrong, it's also the question of what can go good. Management of the risks, opportunities, of course, all the time long. It changes all over, and during the project delivery cycle, of course, you have to do that the whole cycle along. Stakeholders, very important, goes little bit together with the Power and interest I mentioned in the beginning, but here it's more about the systematic approach, about who is involved, who is the customer, who is the buyer, who is the interested parties, who is involved in development of the whole thing, who is interested in the results of the project in a systematic way, also to get them informed about what's going on. And the last but not least one is change and transformation. In most of the projects, you have to do something differently. That's also why a project is set up very often, is to do something differently, not the same way as you did it all the time. That is why standard processes are meant for. Here it's about change and transformation. Of course, big change is a different story, but also in minor projects, you have some change elements. You have to identify them, you have to manage them, and do that all throughout the project. So this is about how we believe in IPMA are the important competencies. It's in total it's 29. Here it's 28. We have in portfolio as 29s. 28 competencies which are required to successfully deliver. So to all of you still studying, yes, you have to still to learn something. If you are not mastering all of this, but they are all important. We have had a lot of discussions. Are they all equally important? Or are there some which are more important? Or how the whole thing is? We simply believe we did not make a ranking or say this is the most important one, this is the least important one. It depends also on the project. So a change project where you just try to change behavior of people, for example, in a manufacturing site, it might be completely different set of competencies which are more important than others than for building a house, for example. Depending on the project, maybe even on the approach, you have to have something differently. But we believe that all of these 28 competencies are important to have in a project. This brings me to another aspect of the whole thing, is that one guy who is the hero, who has to have 28 competencies, mastering all this in one single person. We believe not. We believe not. But you have to have these competencies on board in a project. But it can be spread on different shoulders. Different people can work on different things. So, for example, if you have a very communicative guy in your project, you can task him, for example, for the whole area of information, outer relation, process, power and interest. And you can concentrate much more on, for example, the practice competencies. But overall, we believe that you have to have all people, all the competencies ready in a project to successfully deliver. People, good people, you have to have the tools and the practice, but you also have to take the project environmental stuff, the perspective competencies into consideration. So this is about the competencies which we believe are important. As I mentioned before, they are all described in the document more in details. But it brings me now to a question of, yes, I have still some time, which is much more important than just the poor competence description or competence needed, is how to develop competencies. There is a saying, I'm not totally sure whether it is true, but it is a saying out there: what you can't measure, you can't improve. Could be a teaching or a session in itself, whether this is true or not, but it certainly helps. When you can measure something, you can improve it. You know where you are, you can have measures. So in IPMA, in the competence baseline, you can, by the way, also freely download it on our website. We have described for each competence, so-called competence key competence indicators, and a level below, measures. So we use the term key competence indicators, of course, of analogy to key performance indicators, which you are aware of. Key performance indicators, we say key competence indicators. How does it manifest? How you can see or measure or observe these competencies, and then in a more detailed level for each KCI, we described performance points. As I mentioned before, it is all described in the standard. You can get it from also our Philippines colleagues in a Philippine cover version. It is the English version, and the English version is also freely downloadable. I give you a few examples what that means. I mentioned before a competence element, finance. It's just one of these 28 competencies, finance. We have described what does that mean in terms of key competence indicators. You have to estimate project costs. You have to establish the project budget. You have to ensure that you have your funding. You have to establish, develop, or maintain, or maybe sometimes you can take it over from your organization, a financial management and reporting system. You have to know where you are in terms of spending. And you have constantly to monitor the financials in order to identify corrections and act accordingly. So these are 5 competence indicators. We have between 3 and 7 for each of these competences, what you need to be able to do, what you're competent at. For the last one here, as an example, monitor financials in order to identify and correct deviations from the project plan measures. This is the lower level. As I mentioned before, on every key competence indicators, you find these kind of measures in our competence description. You have to establish and evaluate cost reports. You remember, it's not just about producing cost reports, it's also about evaluation cost reports and act accordingly. Analyze and interpret financial situation. You have to be aware of before a problem arises that you may get into a problem. Use financial performance indicators to monitor and control the project. Of course, forecasts. Your organization is not that much interested in what you have spent. They're much more interested of what you will spend at the end of the project. Of course, you have to signal problems and corresponding mitigation plans. Not just we will overspend, but also plans, what that means in terms to get back to it or to react. This is how the whole structure is meant for key competence indicators and the measures. Another example, leadership. A difficult one, I mentioned it before. It's described as also 5 key competence indicators. Initiate actions and proactively help, offer help and advice. Take ownership and show commitment. Provide direction, coaching and mentoring to guide and improve the work for individuals. Exert appropriate power and influence over others to achieve the goals. Also maybe a question of culture, whether you can do that or not. But make, enforce, and review decisions. Make decisions. What we see in many projects in our environment, project managers do not force decisions. Sometimes they cannot not make it on their own, but you can make the organization make the decisions. Measures for that, I've taken here the 3rd one, provide direction, coaching, and mentoring. Provides direction, coaches, establish a vision, values, and leads according to this principle. Leads according to this principle. You mentioned what I said before. Also do what you preach. Aligning individuals with their objective to reach the target of the project. A last one about this strategy, one in the perspective area, which is described as align with organizational mission and vision. You have to align your project with the overall picture. Then also identify and exploit opportunities to influence it, develop and ensure the ongoing validity of the business organizational justification. Something many project managers constantly forget. Is your project still in line with the overall justification, with the overall stuff, or has this changed and you develop into the completely wrong direction? Determine critical success factors and key performance indicators. Measures of the first one align with organizational mission and vision. Here there are 6 defined. Reflects, you have to know it and you have to reflect it. You have to align the goals with the vision, of course. You have to control whether it's still in sync. And you have also to align measures of strategic alignment, critical success factors. Are they in line with what the organization wants? And the final one, a very important one, we have on a long managers, we have not to deliver the deliverables only. We have to deliver benefit. We have to deliver benefit to the organization, to the world, to the society, not just the deliverables. I'll give you a simple example which comes to my mind. About 20 years ago, I was in Ireland, and there was a railroad from the airport to downtown Dublin. In the middle of this road was a bridge built crossing the railroad, but with no roads on either side. So in the middle of nowhere, there was just a bridge crossing the railroad, no connections at all. Did the project manager deliver the bridge? Yes, of course. Just take off. The bridge is there. Everything is fine. Is it to the benefit of the society in that context? Of course not. Nobody can use it. So this is really important. We have to take this under consideration, not just delivering the task, but to the benefit. There is, coming back to the question how we measure it. We have, I don't know, a few of you know that already, Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom has developed a taxonomy on how to describe competence levels. He died in 1999. Benjamin Bloom. He had a model I can show you here with 6 levels on how competent you are in a certain time. So of course, the professors in in the audience here know that very well. It is also used in teaching. The lowest level is, of course, you can remember. You can just describe what an apple is, for example. You can understand, explain ideas on concept, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize. Then you can apply it. You can use that in a different context. You can solve with that some problems. Then it goes to analyze, evaluate, and create. And the upper level is also a bit under discussion whether this is everything fine. But this gives an idea of how you can evaluate yourself, your competencies in some elements. Do you just recall facts? Can you explain it? Can you build on that information, new situation? Or can you even develop it further and construct new content, new ideas out of the whole thing? We at IPMA, we don't use this complex model for evaluation. It is not handy enough. We use it a little bit differently when we assess the competencies. You might be surprised to see now this picture. What is it all about? It is a car driver, here I think it's a girl, who goes for the driving license. And let me take this picture to explain you the way we at IPMA assess competencies. In contrast, let me be very open and frank. PMI will kill me for this. and compare it with a PMP. A PMP, when you go for a PMP, you get an exam. An exam at the end with a multiple choice question. PMI, in that multiple choice question, asks you for knowledge, for applied knowledge, but not for competences. I give you an example. You approach, you get a question there, you are approaching a sign, a red signal. What are you going to do? What would you do is the question there. You get 4 answers. Maybe you stop, you drive on, you turn around, or you go home, whatever. You tick, you stop. This is proof of your knowledge that you have to stop there, which is correct. According to PMI, you get through the exam because you got the question right. All good, but this is knowledge. The question is clearly, what would you do? So conditional. Whether you stop or not in reality is a completely different story that is not checked in such an exam. We at IPMA, we try a bit of a different approach. We use here in the example of the car license, a different approach. We also check your knowledge in an exam, of course. But then we have experts in the field of project management, which drive around with you for an hour or 2, let you park, let you cross the crossings with green light or red light. And at the end of this 1 hour, 2 hours ride, an expert can evaluate and say, yes, this driver, this girl here in that example, is capable of driving. Not just knowing how to drive, but she can do it. Of course, we cannot be with you all the time. This is not possible, but an expert which sees a lot of candidates, in our case, certification, can evaluate, is this guy, this girl, this boy capable of driving, yes or no? And that is a big, big difference. We try to assess competencies. We use experts which evaluate multiple candidates for assessing competencies, not just knowledge. So here is a bit more process design, how we do it. So of course you have to provide an application. You run an exam, a written exam. Of course, this is simple. What we do then is very important. We have a learning report here. It's an executive summary report. It comes in a high level a bit later, where you reflect. You have to reflect all these 28 competencies I described before. What did you do? Why did you do it? What was the outcome? What was the learning? What would you do in the next similar situation or another situation? What you take with you? So this self-reflection report is in when we get to candidates making this certification, usually the most important element of learning. Really sitting down, it takes quite a while to write it, sitting down, writing what you have done, why you have done it that way, and what was the outcome. Was it right, or would you do some adjustments in the next time? So this learning, improving stuff is very important. And then here the driving around with the interview, you get 1 to 2 hours interview with experts, where they really like to see what you do, why you do it, what is the outcome, did you achieve the target you had with this approach, with this method, with this tool. Very successful. Would you do it again? At the same way, would you adjust? What have you learned? So that is the big difference between IPMA assessment, we call it certification, and other systems, which prove mainly knowledge. Sometimes applied knowledge in a situation, sometimes just knowledge. What is a Gantt chart? It's just knowledge. So questions so far. I talk a lot. Hopefully you can follow me. Questions so far. Thank you, Catherine, for the applause. Roque has published in the chat already the Philippine version of the ICB4. Thank you, Roque. Question, how do you maintain objectivity during the evaluation process? Oh, good. You mean the evaluation process in a certification? Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. Maybe this is the advantage of having a knowledge exam. There you can be very objective. Honestly, we are humans. We are all humans, and we have to some extent objectivity. This is you cannot change that. You are who you are. But I think what makes us a bit more objective is we really want successful candidates. So we do not just want to kick out somebody. We have the intention and also to provide to the candidates learning possibilities. And even if somebody fails, you get a feedback, not just you failed, but what are the elements which are missing? You get feedback on that as well, so that you can learn and come back again, maybe in half a year or a year, with the respective experience, with their respective competencies. So we try really to be as objective as possible, but there is no black and white, of course. We are all humans. There are standards being followed in evaluation, right? Yes, we use at IPMA, we use this ICB for individuals, of course. Another question, well, it's a bit further away, how to become a member of IPMA. Here I have to disappoint you totally. You cannot become a member of IPMA, but what you can do is become a member of IPMA Philippines. So please drop Roque an email and he will be happy. He has already mentioned it, yes, of course. You cannot, IPMA is an umbrella organization of 72 national member associations. So everybody is member of the national member association, in my case, Switzerland. Only the 72 countries are member of IPMA. But you can with IPMA Philippines, of course. Good. If you are still with me, I will talk a bit more about the project itself. Maybe this is also interesting for you. As I mentioned before, I had the pleasure to manage this project, to develop the new standard. IPMA had a standard in place, version 3, which was quite well known, which was applicable in the countries. But we decided we need to have a new one, an updated version of the whole thing. Hello. So creating a standard can be quite boring. Many guys have thought this is really boring stuff, but I must say it was a real challenge. But it was also fun. When we delivered it, this is a picture of the final voting. We have all the 72 countries come together twice a year, and there we have voting procedures on topics, and we had to go for voting. And here you see us on stage after the voting, because all the 72 countries have agreed to the new standard, which was a surprise to us, that unanimously it was decided to go this way. And this is a picture from Panama. So we had this conference together with the World Congress in Panama. So it was really quite fun, at least at the very end, after the party here, after the decision here of the whole thing, we went down to the hotel hall and made some parties. Two of the guys had a guitar with them, and Amin, our executive director, was playing the piano, and we were singing and having champagne in the hotel lobby. So that was the fun moment. But why the fuck did we use produce a new version then? We wanted to address new markets. We had new organizations, new members, especially in the Asian market. We wanted to have better fit to customer needs. That time the agile method came around. We wanted to have new futures. We wanted to have more this environmental, we call it our perspective aspect. The traditional way where IPMA comes from is, of course, that you see here the old eye of competences we had in version 3, the technical competences. These were the first. In the version 2, we had mainly technical competences. Then the version 3 worked on behavioral competences, so the people area. And the version 4 is now also embedding it into the whole organization. Of course, we had a clear picture. We want to protect the current customer bases. There are many companies out there in the world which use also our model, for example, for career path. So for career paths, for example, Thales worldwide uses this for career opportunities for project manager. So this is depending then also on titles and even salary bandwidth. So we could not just change it and to invent something completely new. So we wanted also to keep this customer basis. So we decided to make 8 core innovations. We wanted to get rid of the term project manager. You might be surprised of this totally. We wanted to describe its role independently. We wanted to focus not just on assessment. This is one of the businesses of IPMA, of course, to assess, to certify. We wanted to develop much more, to provide much more a tool for competence development, because the assessment is just a one-time shot. But when you are in the profession of project management, you want to develop over the whole life cycle. So we wanted to have a clear and transparent architecture. We wanted to have more specific competencies. We want this KCI is how we measure these competencies. This was not that good in the previous version. So how we can tangibilize it, how we can measure it or observe it. We wanted to have domain-specific competencies. So project management, program management, and portfolio management is not the same. We want to have a more homologations. In the ICP3, we had the possibility to add national competencies, but because we say project management is an international profession, we want also to have a same set measured and implemented all over the world with some adjustments, of course. It might be some cultural differences, some national differences, of course, which can still be, but homologation all over the world is important. And we wanted to have an integrated way. You may know, or then it's something new to you. We also have a standard not just for the individuals, but also for teams and for organization, and they have to fit and interlink. This is all what we have done. So why did we get rid of the term project manager? So in the ICP4, you will not find the term project manager anymore. We talk about individuals working in the field of project management, because we believe that overall, not one single guy can cover all the competencies. There are many other roles as well, playing an independent stuff and deliver parts of this competence framework. So we can also use that easily for sponsors, PMOs, Scrum Masters, Agile Coach, you name it, with the respective adaptation. But the overall framework remains the same. We also delivered in the meanwhile the standard for Agile leadership, same infrastructure, same model, same architecture. But what does it mean to work in an Agile way of delivering projects? We are planning now others to come, more to come, sponsors, PMO planners, whatever. So we have developed this model here. We have this domains, project, program, portfolio. We have different roles, and we cut in terms of competencies. We cut the whole world of project management into 4 levels, or you could call 5. We have the very experienced on top. We have the lowest experience on D, and then we may have other world of non-project managers. So coming back to one of the questions before of how to be neutral. We give a candidate a certificate on a different level. Of course, there is a certain bandwidth of competencies. There are a bit less level C competent people and a bit more level C competent people. There's not all equal, but we split it into 4 levels, A, B, C, D, in terms of competence levels. So there is also a bit of possibility of adjustments. So we don't evaluate. It's a 5.24. It's either A, B, C, or D. Then I said before, competence development, we have to provide lifelong learning. It gives you a possibility also to identify. There's also a self-assessment at the end of the book, for example. You can use that. Where do you want to go? Where are you weak? Where do you want to improve? How can you do that? Gives you a good possibility. Transparent, well-structured architecture. We have spoken about this already. We have project, program, portfolio. In the meanwhile, also Agile. We have the consultant, the trainer, and the coach. Also similar thing. We have the competence areas with the people, practice, perspective. I explained that in the beginning. We have 28 competencies. There is, of course, portfolio management. Managing a portfolio is a 29th competence, which shows up only on portfolio. You have similar thing also on the consultant trainer, where you have additional competencies. But still, every competence is described with knowledge areas, skill set, 3 to 7 key KCIs, competence indicators, and for each KCI, 3 to 7 specific measures. All defined. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, also the consultant, trainer, coach available, and the Agile leadership. This is what we have spoken about. It's about individual competencies, the application of knowledge, skills, and ability in order to achieve the desired results. We have described that all in key competence indicators and measures. Also something, what is new, we have new areas and new competencies which were not that present. We have, for example, the design. I mentioned that before. Resourcefulness here in bold on this slide. These are the new ones. Resourcefulness. Objective and benefits. In the program, it's not about objectives anymore. It's about benefits. It's just about making sure the benefits are realized. Procurement partnerships, also something we have added to procurement. In a project, you have normally procurement, but partnerships gets also more important with bigger ones. Partnering, construction, it is very common that you set up buildings not on your own, but setting up partnerships with others, change and transformation. Here, the select and balance is the one for the portfolio management. And as you can see, the perspective competencies are new. This is the element where we really expanded and developed further into the whole overall context, as a project is never standing alone. We have spoken about this one. Give me an example of the differentiation of the different domains. Here again, the example of finance, you have seen that before. What is project management? Estimate project costs, establish budget, and so on. You can read it. In program management, it means something different. You still have to manage the finance, but you have to determine program funding and financing strategy. It's not just about asking for some money. It's about funding strategy, financing strategy. You have to establish a program budget, and then you have to usually to drill down, bring down the program budget to the projects which are managed in the program. So it's a different approach, but still you have to manage finance. So this is an example of differentiation between project management and program management. Then the homologation, global reach. The ICP4 as such is available, applicable worldwide. There is no big deviation anymore in the countries. We have it available already in various languages. 32 at the moment, I think, different languages are available, including Arabic and Farsi in Iran. So there are very many available. We are still discussing about the US English version. We have produced it in a British version, and surprisingly, the Americans have a problem reading some words with an S and not with a Z. But okay, this is culture. This is culture. We had the same, by the way, also in the German market, where I belong to. There are 3 different versions in German available. We have synchronized it to the level of competence, KCIs, and measures. They're all the same in all the 3 countries, in all the 3 languages, but the details beyond, then we left to different countries to do. But on element, KCI, and measures, where we also assess, they're identical with one tiny little differences, and this is maybe just a joke, but still, we have the competence element, risk and opportunities. You have seen it before. And in Germany and Switzerland, we said we do risk management already quite good, but we could improve still the opportunity management. So in the Swiss German and the German version, it is that the competence element is called opportunity and risk. And in Austria, which they said they will never be able to sell such an approach, it's risk and opportunities. So that's a differentiation between the Swiss German and the Austrian German versions. In 2 versions, it's opportunity and risk, and the other one is risk and opportunities. But then finally we said, okay, we can live with that. It's still acceptable. As I mentioned before, we have 3 standards. It's not just the standard for individuals, which we use also for certification. We have also a standard. What does it mean, competences in teams? We call it project excellence baseline. So what does it mean in terms of a project team? And we have the same also on organizational competence baseline, the so-called OCB. What does it mean for an organization to be successful? And they are all interlinked now, content-wise and design-wise, of course. Just two remarks. In OCB, we also offer a certification for organization. So maturity assessment of an organization in terms of delivering projects. And what is also important here in the middle for the projects, project baseline, we offer so-called awards. We are awarding projects regularly on a global basis for good project management. This is maybe also something 1 or 2 of you might be interested in the future to run for such an award. Different possibilities of as an individual or as an organization and project. So this is what we have achieved here in terms of innovations. Questions so far? I check the chat again. Another yes, of course, you get a copy of the presentation, of course, including more details on the competencies, then you can read it, no problem. Questions? Well, thank you, sir. It's not really a question, but thank you for the feedback. Here's a good question. Because of various constraints, changes in scope and plans are inevitable. Absolutely agree. What competences and approaches in project management are most useful when there is a deviation from planned and actual project delivery? Good question. Thank you for this one. I think there is not just one which is important. The most important one, in my opinion and my experience, is recognizing deviations early enough. So risk management plays a very important role in recognizing what could be wrong. And of course, also the people area is very important in this kind of things. You have to recognize it early enough. So you have to have a good relation with the teams, that they can come up with problems, issues early enough, and not just blame them when they come up. Then when you blame them, they will never tell you early enough again. So you have to have a very open, transparent communication in a team to find out early upfront. And then when a deviation appears, you have to analyze it in detail. What does it mean for the future? First of all, talk about the future, and then about the past, why it happens and what you can learn. First about the future, what does it mean of the final delivery of the product or of the timeline or of the financials? What does it mean? And then develop possibilities to overcome it. Can you accelerate somewhere else? Can you reduce costs somewhere else? Can you live with this deviation or not? And then maybe you have to ask for more money. You have to inform stakeholders about deviations, whatever it is. So it depends on the thing. But for me, important is to recognize it upfront, very, very early, so that you can act and not just react. When you have the problem already and you have no clue what to do, is not the best thing. When it appears and your management asks you what the fuck is going on there, and you have to say, okay, I know this, and this are the tasks I've initiated to overcome it. It already gives a lot of possibilities to overcome it. Good question. Does project manager have competence also in product lifecycle, material lifecycle? Maribel asked this question. Yes, a good question. A question which is discussed controversially. In fact, setting up. Let me take an example of my daily business. Setting up new trains into service. The project focuses on implementing these trains into the organization, acquire and implementing it. But it does not focus so much in what happens during the life cycle and what happens at the end of the life cycle, decommissioning, this kind of things. And this question, whether this is part of the project or not, is a controversial discussion. You have to clarify that up front in the design phase of the project. What is it what you have to deliver? Do you have to deliver the project, the result, or do you have to deliver the whole thing till the end? Me personally, I think a project manager has to take the rest of the project also into consideration, but this question is discussed very controversially. Maybe you can ask your professors what's their opinion on that. But in my opinion, the project manager does not have to manage the whole product life cycle, but he has to take the product life cycle, including the decommissioning at the end, under consideration. Also, cost-wise, when you develop a business case, for example, this is extremely important. Take a nuclear power plant, for example. It's not just the setup, the production, but it's also the decommissioning at the end. As an expert in project management, do you have any experience to question your competence in evaluating a situation? Good question. Evaluating a situation. Depends, of course, of what situation. When I get, for example, into a new project, or I'm tasked to check the status of a project, I usually sit together with people. Of course, the steering body management level, what they expect, what they know, what they hear from things. But then also very important, I sit together with the project team. I make it as transparent as possible. I use workshop technologies, workshop methods with pin cards and things like that, to sit together and make transparent, as much transparent as possible, what is the real problem. But sometimes it takes multiple rounds to get to the real problems. But for me, evaluating a situation goes 80–90% through people. Of course, you can read some documents, you can read some status reports, whatever it is. But the reality you hear, in my opinion, that might be different in the Philippines, but in my opinion, it goes through people. People tell you, and if you have some confidence in people, then you get to the point. Oh, Rando is asking a good question. How many years of experience to be able to have the 28 competencies? It's an interesting question. Of course, in all the 28 competencies, you have different maturity levels. You will not start with excellency in all the 28 competencies. That's also why you usually grow from level D, C, B to A in a lifespan. And we say you need at least 3 to 5 years to go from one level to the next one of experience, of doing it, to the variation and the whole thing. So this is a good question, and it brings me also to the question we had discussed a lot in project management. What role plays experience? And you could also say, okay, experience plays a very important role, but we did not want to define number of years of experience so much, because there are guys which are really talented. I talk about talent. They don't need that much experience, and they know and can work in that. Let's take leadership. There are natural guys out there who can do it. Just, hey, they're young guys, 16 years old, who can lead teams and things like that. And others which are 60 years old and they still can't. So it's also a sort of talent which drives how much experience do you need to do that. So it's not about 5 years, 3 years, 10 years. It's also a bit of your own being, of your own interest and how you grew up and how you are as a person. Adriano also made a good suggestion. Of course, SWOT analysis is a very important tool in many situations. Can be really lead to the good questions. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? Of course, a very well known and easy tool. This makes it so charming. It is an easy tool, but the focus is on the right thing. Of course, Adriano, thank you for this. Okay, do you still want to listen to me a few words? then I use the last 10-15 minutes, if I may, also to talk a bit about IPMA. Hopefully, Roque didn't do that in all the details already. As you see, I'm also responsible for marketing communications, so it's also my job to do a bit of advertisement for IPMA. And excuse me if it is too boring, but I think it's also wise to learn a bit more about IPMA. We have the saying, we are IPMA, we are IPMA, and this is not just a simple sentence. It is true. So the ICB4 was not developed by me or by an intelligent professor somewhere. We all together, the 72 countries, with all their members, with all the people around there, we are IPMA. It's not just a core body somewhere in the US or somewhere in Europe. We are just trying, as IPMA, we are trying to orchestrate all the initiatives from the different countries to enable them tools and techniques they can apply in their countries to be more successful. So we are IPMA. Doesn't mean we at the central body. We are our IPMA. That's all means also you, all of being here. So a bit of history, of course. We were the first project management association, founded in 1965. The first name we used in the market was, and that this is a silly part of our story, was Internet, International Network of Experts. Internet was the first abbreviation. Of course, we could not keep that name. After the Internet, www took over later, so we had to change to the name to International Project Management Association. We were also the first role-based certification in the world. We are really trying to develop competencies for individuals, project organizations, and now also recently society. We are talking about projectification of societies. So you know also the drive of the issues we had with COVID all over the world brings now a lot of money into the world, and all this money will be applied in some projects. We have to do something, so that this will also boost our profession on a societal level. We provide events, we provide awards, and meanwhile we are 72 countries. What do we do? What are the mainly products we offer? First of all, we have some conferences, some events. The most important one are the ones like this one. So the national ones, the national organizations do something for their audience, their members in the countries. We support them, of course. But we also have a World Congress. Every year we organize a World Congress. In fact, it means that a member association takes over and organizes it locally with our help. Next year in November, we will be in Tokyo, Japan, and come back to Europe 2023 to Copenhagen. And then we'll go to the States. We always try to have once in Europe, then in Asia, Europe or Africa, and then the Americas, being North or South. We have a research conference where we discuss interesting topics, research topics. We have a lot of interest groups, special interest groups about urban development. We have artificial intelligence. A lot of interest groups. You can also check what's our sig.ipma.world website, where you find all these things. This is for free. You can collaborate there and share information with others. They produce some events, some book reviews. So that's very active. And we have for the youngsters, young crew activities. A lot of young crew activities. This is meant for people normally so up to 35 students and young professionals getting into the profession of project management. We have then the second pillar is our standards. We have spoken about this. The core is, of course, the ICBs as such, but also OCB and of materials in terms of blogs, social media. We are very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Not that much, but also YouTube. Of course, we provide newsletters. Whenever you are interested, just go to the website ipma.world. You can have a copy of it that is for free, and you may take whatever you want from this. And we have then the fourth pillar is the awards. We really recognize good project management, being on individuals, delivering, or researchers, but also project organization. We celebrate that also every year. We have also a program called Coaching for Development. This is a coaching opportunity for experienced project manager to help NGOs somewhere in the world. This is what we have spoken about. Certification offers as well. IPMA awards. Here it is. Few words. So we have the recognition for also individuals, researchers, young MBA students, but also the Achievements Awards, which goes then also to different countries, different models, and the Global Project Excellence Awards, which means then on different big projects, which are assessed and then recognized. Well, congresses also said we have just finished a few weeks ago St. Petersburg. We will go 2022 to Tokyo and 23 to Copenhagen. We are in discussion with the United States for 2024, but not yet decided. Young Crew program, just in a short, vibrant Young Crew activities. I'm not that much sure about the development of the Young Crew in the Philippines, but if you're interested, Roque is also contacting person there. We make a lot of activities there, even on the global thing of competition, students against other students globally. Very interesting content. Also get together, Young Crew workshop alongside of the World Congress, where you can meet others, other young people, other students around the world. Yeah, that's IPMA. We call it IPMA family. It's much more than just attending conferences, we believe, and that's one of the USPs we have. We build lifelong relationship. I have colleagues now in the IPMA networks for more than 20 years, sometimes a bit more intensive, sometimes a bit less, but you know each other, you help each other, you get in contact. We have, for example, a marketing network organized now with all the marketeers from 72 countries. We have WhatsApp groups where we send each other some jokes and greetings and birthday wishes, whatever it is. So it's much more than just attending, jumping in, jumping out, making an assessment certificate, and then it's gone. We built really lifelong relationship for you to develop. Okay, that's it. We have spoken already. I think yes, IPMA is in the forefront of the professional development. We offer an international network. We also offer the national network, of course, with IPMA Philippines. We offer certifications, competence-based certification, not just knowledge. We build alliances. And yes, of course, we are interested to have you on board to further develop. As I mentioned before, we are IPMA. So not just me and my colleagues from the board, we all are IPMA. So please help us.